There are places on Earth where silence is not an absence of sound, but a heavy, ancient presence, a weight in the air that suggests secrets held for millennia. High in the most remote, unforgiving peaks, a discovery was made. Not a natural formation, sculpted by wind and ice, but something else entirely. Something deliberate. Something carved with a precision and scale that defied every known human capability. This is not a ghost story. This is not folklore. This is not a myth whispered in shadows. Welcome back to the Lostvell Chronicle. What you are about to hear is drawn from official expedition reports, from the suppressed logs of geological surveys, and from photographic evidence carefully catalogued and then, just as carefully, filed away into obscurity. This is a case so profoundly baffling, so utterly beyond conventional explanation, that it was deemed a threat to established understanding. It was sealed away, deliberately buried beneath layers of bureaucratic silence and strategic misdirection. Its very existence denied, then forgotten by all but a select few. But the rock remembers. The cold stone holds its secrets, and now, through painstaking re-examination of these lost documents, so will we. We will journey to the highest, most desolate reaches of the world, where the first chilling reports of impossible structures within solid rock began to surface. We will uncover the swift, decisive action taken by authorities to erase their existence from public record, to silence those who spoke of what they saw. And we will confront the single terrifying question that persists through generations, echoing in the carved holes themselves. Who shaped this rock? Who built these impossible structures? Listen closely. The story begins now. The remote peaks' carved halls. Who shaped this rock? The unmarked ascent. In the spring of 1978, a small independent geological survey team, led by Dr. Alistair Finch, embarked on a routine seismic mapping mission deep within an uncharted section of the Carpathian Mountains. Their objective was to chart subterranean fault lines, a task considered entirely mundane. However, a sudden, anomalous energy signature registered on their equipment, leading them far from established climbing routes to a previously unrecorded peak. Upon reaching a high plateau, the team discovered a series of perfectly geometric openings cut directly into the sheer rock face. These were not natural caves formed by erosion, but precise, rectilinear portals, showing no signs of blasting or modern excavation. The sheer scale of these openings was bewildering, dwarfing the team members below. Initial radio transmissions from Dr. Finch, describing impossible architecture and vast carved chambers, were met with considerable skepticism by regional authorities. Subsequent urgent requests for immediate extraction and a full investigation, however, prompted a swift, uncharacteristic response. Within 72 hours, a specialized military unit was dispatched, not merely for retrieval, but for an immediate high-priority site assessment. The official report, later declassified in part, explicitly noted the unprecedented nature of the structures. It stated that the precision of the cuts and the sheer volume of rock removed were inconsistent with any known ancient civilization or even modern engineering techniques available in that remote region. This presented an immediate profound challenge to conventional archaeological and geological understanding. Following the initial assessment, all members of Finch's team were debriefed extensively and placed under strict non-disclosure agreements. The entire area was designated a restricted zone, citing geological instability as the official publicly released reason for closure. Access logs from the period show a complete cessation of civilian and academic research in the region, a sudden and total information blackout. Decades later, a fragmented copy of Dr. Finch's personal field journal, discovered among his effects, offered a crucial, unedited perspective. It detailed his team's initial descent into one of the smaller openings, describing polished surfaces and corridors extending far into the mountain's core. The journal entries provide a stark contrast to the sanitized official records. The journal also mentioned peculiar, non-Euclidean angles within the deeper chambers, a detail entirely absent from the military's summary report. This suggests a deliberate omission, raising the fundamental question: what was truly hidden within those peaks, And why was its existence so thoroughly erased from public knowledge? Echoes in the stone. As Dr. Finch's team ventured beyond the perfectly cut thresholds, the initial awe gave way to profound disquiet. His journal entries described vast, interconnected chambers that seemed to hum with an imperceptible energy. The interior surfaces were described as smooth, almost polished, yet bore no tool marks that could be identified with any known method of excavation. This suggested a construction technique utterly alien to contemporary understanding. The material itself presented an immediate enigma. Geologists on Finch's team, specialists in rock formations, could not definitively classify the stone. While appearing to be native granite, samples taken showed a crystalline structure of unusual density and purity, far exceeding what is naturally found in the region. This unique composition made conventional drilling or cutting techniques impossible, even with modern equipment. Official military reports, later partially declassified, confirmed the structural integrity and unusual composition of the carved holes. However, these documents conspicuously omitted any detailed analysis of the material's properties or the implied construction methods. Instead, they focused on the strategic importance of the remote location, a clear pivot from the actual discovery. A significant contradiction emerges when cross-referencing Dr. Finch's private notes with the military's initial assessment logs. Finch's journal explicitly details the discovery of complex geometric patterns etched into the chamber walls, patterns that defied simple decorative intent. These intricate markings, according to Finch, suggested a form of symbolic language or a sophisticated data storage medium. Yet, the official logs contain no reference to such findings, focusing solely on structural dimensions. The swift suppression of information extended beyond reports. All photographic evidence captured by Finch's team, particularly images from within the deeper chambers, was confiscated. Official records state these materials were lost or in transit, a claim that strains credulity given the high security surrounding the operation. This deliberate erasure created a significant gap in the available primary source material. Modern reanalysis, based on surviving sketches from Finch's journal and a few leaked low-resolution photographs, suggests the precision of the cuts would require laser-like accuracy or advanced sonic excavation. Such technology was entirely hypothetical in 1978, making the existence of these structures a profound technological anomaly. The sheer scale of the rock removed, estimated in the hundreds of thousands of cubic meters, further deepens the mystery. The question then intensifies: if human hands shaped these halls, they possessed a technology centuries, perhaps millennia, ahead of their time. If not human, then what intelligence possessed the capability and the motive to carve such impossible structures into the heart of the remote peaks? The first aberration. Deep within the silent, carved halls, the team's initial geological survey equipment began to register increasingly erratic readings. Dr. Finch's journal notes a pervasive low-frequency resonance that seemed to emanate from the very stone itself, an acoustic signature unlike anything they had encountered in natural geological formations. This constant, subtle vibration caused persistent headaches and disorientation among the team members, a detail entirely absent from official military records. The most significant anomaly appeared on their spectroscopic scanners. These devices, designed to analyze mineral composition, began to detect trace elements that simply did not belong in the Carpathian granite. According to Finch's detailed entries, minute quantities of highly stable, synthetic isotopes were present within the rock matrix. This finding challenged fundamental assumptions about the natural origin of the mountain itself, suggesting an artificial manipulation at a molecular level. Official government reports, eventually declassified, acknowledge unusual material properties, but attribute them vaguely to unforeseen geological phenomena. There is no mention of synthetic isotopes or any detailed chemical analysis that could confirm or deny Finch's claims. This deliberate imprecision in official documentation raised immediate red flags for later independent researchers. A crucial conflict arises when comparing Finch's personal log with the military's initial assessment. Finch meticulously documented a chamber where the internal temperature was unnaturally stable, significantly warmer than the surrounding rock, despite no discernible heat source. His thermal imaging equipment registered a uniform radiant energy, yet the official military report described the chambers as consistently cold and inert, a direct contradiction that remains unexplained. Following these increasingly bizarre discoveries, Finch's team, specifically his lead physicist, Dr. Elena Petrova, attempted to recalibrate their equipment. However, the journal states that their attempts were met with recurring electrical interference, causing sensitive instruments to malfunction or display corrupted data. This pattern of interference, described as a localized electromagnetic field, was never acknowledged in any publicly released government document. Modern reanalysis of the few surviving fragments of data from Finch's expedition, cross-referenced with later unrelated studies of anomalous energy signatures, suggests the presence of an active, non-natural power source, deep within the mountain. The consistent suppression of any data relating to energy anomalies, synthetic materials, or environmental shifts within the halls points to a deliberate effort to control the narrative. The question then becomes not merely she who built these halls, but what power source was utilized to create such an environment, and more critically, what was its purpose? The official silence on these aberrations suggests a truth far more profound than simple ancient architecture. Whispers from the deep. As the expedition pushed deeper into the carved halls, Dr. Finch's specialized sensors, initially configured for seismic mapping, began registering anomalous, highly structured electromagnetic pulses. These were not random static or natural geological phenomena, but distinct, repeating sequences operating on frequencies outside standard scientific understanding. The very stone itself seemed to be transmitting. The pulses exhibited complex modulation, immediately suggesting an encoded signal rather than simple noise. The team's communication specialists were utterly baffled. The signals displayed an internal logic and consistency that defied any known classification, pointing towards an intelligent, non-natural origin. This discovery plunged the team into profound confusion. Military liaison officers, present on site to oversee the expedition, quickly downplayed these significant findings. Their official reports attributed the signals to localized magnetic anomalies or unforeseen equipment interference, despite the consistent and undeniably structured nature of the readings. The urgency of their dismissal was notable. A significant contradiction emerges when comparing these official statements with Dr. Finch's private log. His personal entries detail his lead cryptographer's preliminary analysis, which identified distinct patterns and potential algorithms within the pulse sequences. Finch noted that certain sequences appeared to repeat with variations, strongly suggesting a form of data transmission, a detail entirely absent from all declassified government documents. All raw data recordings of these anomalous pulses were immediately confiscated by military intelligence. Personnel involved in their analysis were subjected to extensive debriefings and compelled to sign stringent non-disclosure agreements, effectively burying any scientific discussion of the signals. The incident was officially categorized as an unresolved technical anomaly and then sealed. Decades later, fragments of Finch's original, hand-transcribed notes, meticulously preserved by a junior team member who later came forward, underwent modern computational analysis. Experts confirmed the non-random, highly complex nature of the pulse sequences, indicating an intelligent origin and a sophisticated method of encoding. These were not just sounds, but informational whispers from the deep. The unanswered question then intensifies. If these structures were indeed broadcasting data, what kind of information was being transmitted from the heart of the mountain? And to whom was it intended? The concerted effort to silence and discredit these findings suggests the data held implications far beyond simple scientific curiosity, perhaps revealing a profound, active presence within the ancient stone. A pattern emerges. As the expedition continued its meticulous survey, Dr. Finch's team began to observe an undeniable consistency in the construction of the remote peak's carved halls. Beyond the initial shock of their existence, a complex, recurring geometric motif became apparent, etched into the polished stone surfaces and subtly integrated into the very architecture of the corridors and chambers. These intricate designs were not merely decorative. They exhibited a mathematical precision that defied conventional ancient craftsmanship. The team's initial confusion quickly deepened into profound bewilderment. The patterns, once analyzed by the expedition's resident mathematician, Dr. Sergei Volkov, revealed advanced fractal geometries and non-Euclidean symmetries that were entirely unknown in any documented ancient civilization. Volkov's preliminary report detailed ratios and sequences that mirrored complex algorithms, suggesting an intelligence far beyond human comprehension at the time of their supposed creation. Official military communications, however, retrospectively dismissed these findings as naturally occurring geological formations or interpretive errors by the scientific team. These reports selectively highlighted observations that supported a natural origin, entirely omitting any mention of Volkov's detailed mathematical analysis or the consistent, non-random nature of the discovered patterns. The discrepancy between the scientific and official accounts is stark. A significant contradiction arises when comparing this official stance with Dr. Finch's private correspondence. Finch expressed his growing conviction that the patterns constituted a form of language or encoded information, rather than mere decoration. He noted instances where the patterns aligned precisely with the electromagnetic pulse frequencies detected earlier, suggesting a deliberate integrated system of communication embedded within the very structure. This direct link was never acknowledged by the military. Following these increasingly unsettling discoveries, orders were issued to halt all specialized pattern analysis. The team was explicitly redirected towards geological mapping and material strength testing, effectively suppressing any further investigation into the structured designs. Records pertaining to Dr. Volkov's fractal analysis were reportedly lost during a transfer of documents, a convenient disappearance that drew suspicion. Decades later, independent cryptographers, working with fragments of Volkov's handwritten notes that surfaced through unofficial channels, confirmed the mathematical sophistication of the patterns. Their analysis indicated a deep understanding of advanced physics and astrophysics embedded within the seemingly decorative motifs. This modern reanalysis firmly established the patterns as an intentional, informational construct. The unanswered question then becomes paramount. If these intricate patterns were a form of encoded knowledge or communication, what profound message did they contain? And why was the military so intent on ensuring that their true nature remained a secret buried deep within the carved halls of the remote peaks? The cartographer's fear. Amidst the scientific investigations, a critical role was played by the expedition's lead cartographer, Elena Petrova, tasked with meticulously charting the labyrinthine interior of the carved halls. Petrova, a veteran surveyor with decades of experience in subterranean environments, began to report profound and unsettling discrepancies in the spatial geometry of the structures. Her precise measurements revealed that certain corridors appeared longer or shorter, depending on the direction of travel, and junctions did not consistently align, suggesting a non-Euclidean arrangement within the solid rock. Petrova's initial confusion quickly escalated into a deep-seated professional dread. Her instruments, repeatedly calibrated and checked, consistently yielded data that defied conventional physics and architectural logic. The internal space of the halls seemed to subtly shift and fold, presenting an impossible challenge to her mapping efforts. She expressed fears of miscalculation, despite her unwavering confidence in her own methodology. Official reports from the military liaison dismissed Petrova's findings as operator error or equipment malfunction due to the unusual electromagnetic fields detected earlier. They insisted on the primacy of other, less direct sensor data, which presented a perfectly rational, if complex, layout. This swift dismissal overlooked Petrova's impeccable track record and the consistent nature of her anomalous readings. A significant contradiction emerges when comparing Petrova's detailed, hand-drawn schematics with the simplified, government-issued maps. Petrova's personal log, later uncovered, contained sketches illustrating corridors that seemingly loop back on themselves in impossible ways, or chambers whose positions were inconsistent relative to fixed external points. These detailed anomalies were entirely absent from all publicly released official documentation, which depicted a standard, albeit vast, underground complex. Following her increasingly insistent reports of spatial distortion, Elena Petrova was quietly removed from the expedition. Official records state her departure was due to psychological strain and an inability to adapt to the isolated environment, a convenient explanation that raised eyebrows among her colleagues. All her original survey notes, raw data, and personal maps were confiscated and subsequently vanished from official archives, effectively silencing her findings. Decades later, a former junior assistant from the expedition, haunted by Petrova's distress, anonymously provided copies of fragments from the cartographer's original sketches. Modern topological analysis, utilizing advanced computational modeling, confirmed the non-Euclidean characteristics of certain sections of the internal architecture. This reanalysis provided compelling evidence that the spatial anomalies were not errors, but an intrinsic, deliberate feature of the carved halls. The unanswered question then becomes chilling. If the architects of these halls possessed the knowledge and technology to manipulate space itself within the mountains, what was their ultimate purpose? Was this an advanced defense mechanism, a test of perception, or something far more profound, designed to disorient, trap, or perhaps even transport those who dared to venture inside? Shadows in the summit. As the expedition ventured deeper into the remote peak's carved halls, a new and unsettling phenomenon began to emerge, distinct from the structural and material oddities. Several members of the scientific and military teams reported fleeting visual disturbances. These were described as indistinct, rapidly moving forms or deep shadows that seemed to detach from the ambient gloom, darting through peripheral vision or across distant cavern walls, only to vanish instantly. The observations were consistently made in low-light conditions or during periods of intense concentration. The immediate confusion among the witnesses was palpable. Seasoned professionals, accustomed to extreme environments, initially dismissed these sightings as optical illusions, fatigue, or the psychological strain of prolonged isolation. However, the consistency of these disparate accounts, often reported independently by individuals working in different sections of the complex, began to undermine easy explanations, sparking a deeper unease among the scientific personnel. Official military communications retrospectively categorized these incidents as environmental stress-induced sensory anomalies or isolated cases of visual misperception. Command emphasized the psychological toll of the expedition, offering mandatory rest periods and counseling. This official narrative directly contradicted the detailed, sober accounts recorded in multiple private journals and informal logs maintained by expedition members, which spoke of a profound sense of observation. A significant contradiction arose when comparing the official psychological assessments with the actual conduct of the individuals. Many who reported sightings were noted for their resilience and mental fortitude, making the psychological strain diagnosis appear convenient. Lieutenant Anya Sharma, a highly decorated reconnaissance specialist, documented a clear bipedal silhouette moving silently across a lit passage, an observation she swore was neither hallucination nor trick of light. This direct testimony was never included in official summaries. Following these persistent reports, all discussions regarding unidentified visual phenomena were explicitly forbidden outside of classified channels. Personnel who continued to report such observations were swiftly transferred off the expedition or subjected to rigorous psychological reevaluations, often resulting in their quiet removal from active duty. All primary reports detailing these shadow observations were subsequently redacted or vanished entirely from the expedition's official archives. Decades later, during a declassification review, a pattern emerged from the fragmented medical records and suppressed testimonials. Independent forensic psychologists analyzing the sheer volume and similarity of the anomalous sensory experience reports, concluded that the incidents were too widespread and consistent to be purely psychological. The sheer statistical improbability of so many individuals experiencing identical, non-pathological hallucinations pointed instead to a genuine, external phenomena. The unanswered question remains chilling. If these fleeting shadows were not products of the human mind, then what were they? Were they residual energy signatures, automated sentinels of the ancient builders, or a living, unseen presence that still moved within the impenetrable depths of the carved halls, silently observing those who intruded upon its domain? The missing expedition. During the reconnaissance phase within the deeper sections of the carved halls, a startling discovery was made by a geological survey team. They unearthed remnants of an earlier, unrecorded human presence, discarded equipment, rusted climbing gear, and a partially collapsed tent structure, all predating their own expedition by what appeared to be several decades. The artifacts were clearly not indigenous, bearing the hallmarks of mid-20th century Western technology. This find immediately raised profound questions, as there was no corresponding entry in any known expedition logs or historical records detailing a prior exploration of such a remote, high-altitude location. The immediate confusion among the lead scientists was palpable. Every known attempt to penetrate this region had been meticulously documented due to its extreme isolation and strategic importance. The discovery of these relics suggested an entirely clandestine operation, one that had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only these silent witnesses. The team reported a growing sense of unease, realizing they might not be the first to confront the mysteries within the mountains. Official response from Expedition Command was swift and dismissive, characterizing the find as misplaced historical debris or remnants of an unauthorized private venture. The directive was to log the items, but to cease further investigation into their origin, focusing instead on the primary mission. This stance was reinforced by the fact that official government archives maintained a complete silence regarding any prior large-scale exploration of the specific peaks where the halls were located. However, a significant contradiction emerged when a sealed, waterproof container was found alongside the other artifacts. Inside, expedition member Dr. Aris Thorne discovered a series of detailed handwritten entries that ceased abruptly mid-sentence, alongside rudimentary maps of the outer halls. The language and technical terms used in these logs indicated a highly organized, professionally equipped team, not a casual private venture. The final log entry spoke of unforeseen structural shifts and a growing sense of being watched, directly contradicting the official narrative of a simple, lost private party. Following the discovery of these logs, all communication regarding the prior presence was strictly controlled and quickly suppressed. Expedition members were explicitly warned against discussing the matter, and the recovered artifacts, including the crucial logbook, were transferred to a classified holding facility. All subsequent inquiries into what became known internally as Operation Chimera were met with immediate classification and a blanket denial of any governmental involvement. Years after the main expedition concluded, a forensic linguistic analysis of leaked fragments from the recovered logbook revealed precise dating markers and references to specific, now-defunct military research protocols. This modern reanalysis confirmed the existence of a highly organized, state-sponsored expedition decades before the official one. The fragments also hinted at advanced geological instruments and specialized personnel, suggesting a mission far more complex than mere exploration. The unanswered question persists with chilling implications. What happened to this original, unacknowledged expedition within the carved halls? Was their disappearance a tragic accident, a consequence of the mountain's natural perils? Or were they victims of the very forces and phenomena that the later expedition would also encounter, forces that the official record had so desperately tried to erase? A language unspoken. Deep within the central chambers of the carved halls, the expedition's archaeological team made an astonishing discovery. Intricate, repetitive markings etched directly into the polished rock surfaces. These were not natural geological features or random scratches. They were deliberate, organized patterns, clearly artificial. Unlike any known ancient pictographs or petroglyphs, they possessed a geometric precision and an alien aesthetic that immediately defied classification. The immediate confusion among the expedition's linguistic and epigraphic specialists was profound. Initial attempts to correlate the symbols with any known human script, ancient or modern, proved fruitless. The markings lacked a recognizable phonetic structure, nor did they resemble any known ideographic or logographic system. They seemed to exist outside the established paradigms of human communication, presenting an entirely new challenge to understanding. Official expedition directives quickly categorized these enigmatic symbols as non-linguistic structural ornamentation or stylized decorative motifs. Command emphasized their presumed aesthetic function, discouraging extensive linguistic analysis in favor of architectural and material studies. This stance aimed to maintain focus on the hall's physical attributes, rather than delve into potentially speculative interpretations of meaning. However, contradictions soon arose from internal reports. Dr. Vivian Chen, a lead cryptographer, privately documented recurring sequences and what appeared to be grammatical structures within the symbols, suggesting a coherent system of communication. Her preliminary analyses indicated a mathematical underpinning to their arrangement far beyond mere decoration. These observations directly challenged the official dismissals, implying a sophisticated, deliberate message. Following Dr. Chen's persistent, albeit unofficial, research, all materials related to the symbolic analysis were swiftly confiscated. Her team was reassigned to unrelated tasks, and any further discussion of the markings as a potential language was explicitly forbidden. Official records subsequently omitted any mention of linguistic analysis, classifying the symbols simply as architectural embellishments to be catalogued but not interpreted. Decades later, during a review of declassified expedition files, fragments of Dr. Chen's original field notes resurfaced. Modern computational linguistics, utilizing advanced pattern recognition algorithms, confirmed her earlier suspicions. The reanalysis revealed complex, recursive structures within the copied symbols, indicative of a highly sophisticated, nonlinear communication system. This system bore no resemblance to any human language, suggesting an entirely different cognitive framework. The unanswered question persists. If these intricate markings constitute a language, who were its authors, and what profound message did they etch into the very fabric of these remote peaks? What knowledge, what history, or what warning lies embedded within these unspoken words, silently awaiting an interpreter? And why was their potential meaning so fiercely suppressed by those who first encountered them? The architect's mark. As the expedition penetrated the deeper, more structurally complex sections of the carved halls, the engineering team made a critical discovery regarding the very method of their construction. They identified consistent, repeating patterns of microscopic striations and molecular alterations within the rock itself, indicative of an incredibly precise and powerful shaping process. These marks were not consistent with any known form of ancient human quarrying or carving, nor could they be explained by natural geological erosion. The immediate confusion among the lead geologists and structural engineers was profound. The scale and uniformity of the internal surfaces suggested a single, unified design, executed with a technology that seemed to defy terrestrial physics. There were no visible tool marks in the conventional sense, no debris fields from excavation, and the rock appeared to have been sculpted or melted into shape rather than cut. This presented an insurmountable puzzle for conventional engineering understanding. Official expedition reports, however, downplayed these anomalies, attributing the precision to unparalleled mastery of ancient carving techniques or unique geological formations that facilitated natural sculpting. The command emphasized the aesthetic and structural aspects, rather than the perplexing methods of creation. This narrative sought to maintain the halls within a framework of advanced but human achievable feats. Contradictions soon emerged from internal technical reports. Dr. Helena Vance, a materials scientist, documented specific areas where the crystalline structure of the rock appeared to have been subtly reordered, almost fused at a molecular level. Her analysis indicated localized energy application far beyond any known ancient or even modern human capability for such large-scale projects. These findings were detailed in a classified addendum, directly challenging the official explanation. Following Dr. Vance's persistent inquiries and detailed submissions, her research on anomalous material properties was abruptly halted. All her samples and raw data were seized, and her team was reassigned to less sensitive mapping tasks. The official narrative solidified, dismissing any suggestion of non-conventional construction methods as unsubstantiated speculation and classifying all contradictory findings. Decades later, a reanalysis of declassified expedition photographs and high-resolution scans, utilizing advanced image processing and forensic geology techniques, confirmed Dr. Vance's original findings. Researchers identified subtle energy signatures embedded within the rock, suggesting a process involving immense heat or directed energy. These signatures were consistent across vast sections of the halls, indicating a singular, highly advanced construction methodology. The unanswered question thus remains: who possessed the knowledge and technology to shape solid rock with such precision and on such a colossal scale, leaving behind a molecular signature that defies all known terrestrial engineering? What ultimate purpose did these architects intend for the remote peak's carved halls? And why did they leave no other discernible trace of their existence beyond this indelible silent mark beneath the frozen veil? As the expedition continued its meticulous survey of the outer perimeter of the carved halls, a critical discovery was made beneath a retreating glacier. A large, previously obscured section of the mountain face, exposed by recent climatic shifts, revealed a series of smaller, secondary entrances. These were not the grand, primary portals, but rather inconspicuous, almost hidden apertures, clearly artificial and distinct from natural rock formations. The immediate confusion among the lead geologists and archaeologists was palpable. The existence of these secondary access points challenged the initial understanding of the halls as a singular, monumental structure. Their modest scale and concealed nature suggested a different purpose, perhaps a more private or functional role, entirely distinct from the public-facing grandeur of the main entrances. This discovery complicated the entire architectural interpretation. Official expedition directives quickly categorized these newly exposed entrances as subsidiary maintenance tunnels or natural erosion features, mistakenly identified as artificial. The command's focus remained on the main complex, discouraging extensive exploration of these smaller openings. This approach sought to streamline the expedition's efforts and avoid diverting resources to what were deemed less significant findings. However, contradictions emerged from internal reconnaissance reports. A small, unauthorized survey team, led by junior geologist Dr. Kenji Tanaka, managed to access one of these hidden entrances before official orders could prevent them. They reported finding a distinct lack of maintenance features, but instead observed highly polished, almost ceremonial antechambers, diverging sharply from the utilitarian classification. Furthermore, the air within these chambers was unusually cold, far colder than the surrounding rock. Following Dr. Tanaka's report, his team was immediately recalled and formally reprimanded for exceeding their directives. All their photographic and thermal imaging data from the secondary entrances were confiscated. Official records subsequently omitted any detailed mention of these smaller openings, classifying them broadly as minor geological anomalies or unexplored fissures that bore no significant relation to the main structure. Decades later, during a comprehensive reevaluation of the expedition's original survey data, a thermal imaging anomaly was detected in an archived file from Dr. Tanaka's team. Modern analysis revealed consistent sub-zero temperatures within these minor anomalies, even in areas far removed from glacial ice. This suggested an active internal cooling mechanism, or a deliberate preservation system, completely absent from the main halls. The data hinted at a controlled environment, hidden from the world. The unanswered question persists. What secrets lay preserved beneath that frozen veil, within those hidden chambers whose existence was so swiftly dismissed, and whose frigid temperatures defied natural explanation? What crucial knowledge or artifacts might have been deliberately sequestered in these secret annexes? And why was their discovery so quickly suppressed by those charged with uncovering the truth of the remote peaks' carved halls? The shifting truth. A recently declassified internal memorandum, originating from the expedition's intelligence liaison, and dated shortly after the initial deep chamber explorations, brought a stark new dimension to the official narrative. This document, marked eyes only, and distributed to a select few high-ranking officials, explicitly detailed anomalies far beyond the scope of advanced, ancient human engineering. It spoke of energy signatures inconsistent with known terrestrial physics and structural integrity defying conventional material science, directly contradicting every public statement made at the time. Immediate confusion arose among contemporary analysts reviewing this memo. The public had been consistently assured that the carved halls, while impressive, were the product of a highly advanced, but ultimately human civilization. This internal document, however, articulated a clear understanding within the highest echelons that the origin and construction methods of the halls presented a profound, unexplainable enigma. It suggested a deliberate divergence between internal assessment and external communication. The official public response, maintained for decades, continued to frame the halls as a testament to an unknown ancient human culture. Internally, however, the memo triggered a significant increase in security protocols around the site and a reclassification of all related research. This dual approach meant that while the world was given one story, a far more complex and unsettling truth was being grappled with in secrecy. The contradictions were undeniable. Public reports emphasized the architectural beauty and the scale of human endeavor, while the intelligence memo focused on the implications of non-terrestrial or ultra-advanced origin. It specifically mentioned concerns about potential residual energy fields and unidentified material compositions within the rock, details entirely absent from any public record. This timeline conflict raised critical questions about the intent behind the information control. Following the memo's initial circulation, its existence was vehemently denied for decades. Any inquiries into discrepancies between public and internal reports were met with official dismissals, citing misinterpretations of classified data or administrative errors. The document was effectively buried, its contents only surfacing due to a legislative act mandating the review of historically significant classified materials. Modern reanalysis of the memo, juxtaposed with the official expedition logs and public statements, now paints a clear picture of deliberate obfuscation. Intelligence historians confirm that the information contained within the memo was not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern of suppressing evidence that challenged conventional scientific and historical paradigms. The goal, it appears, was to control the public's perception of the discovery at all costs. The unanswered question that remains is profound. What specific revelations or perceived threats did the authorities believe necessitated such a high level of deception? What secrets, beyond the mere existence of an advanced structure, were deemed so dangerous or destabilizing that the truth of the remote peaks' carved halls had to be meticulously managed and fundamentally shifted for the public? The unveiling chamber. Following persistent rumors and the re-evaluation of suppressed thermal imaging data from Dr. Tanaka's team, a specialized geological survey unit was discreetly dispatched to the remote peaks. Their mission was to investigate the consistent sub-zero anomalies beneath the retreating glacier, first noted decades prior. Utilizing advanced ground-penetrating radar, the team located a sealed artificial entrance expertly concealed behind a thick layer of compacted ice and rock, leading into a chamber previously unrecorded. The immediate confusion centered on the chamber's internal environment. Upon breaching the seal, the team discovered a vast, perfectly preserved space, maintained at a frigid -20 degrees Celsius. This was not a natural cave, but a meticulously carved hall, its surfaces gleaming with an unknown crystalline substance. At its center stood a singular, massive artifact, unlike anything previously encountered within the main complex, encased in a transparent ice-like sheet. Official directives from Central Command were swift and absolute. The site was to be immediately secured, all personnel isolated, and no external communications permitted. The discovery was designated Category Alpha 0, indicating extreme sensitivity and potential for global destabilization. This response far exceeded standard protocols for archaeological finds, suggesting a deeper, more immediate concern than mere historical significance. Contradictions quickly emerged between the initial field assessments and the controlled information flow. Early, unverified transmissions from the survey team spoke of the artifact emitting a low, rhythmic hum and displaying intricate, non-terrestrial symbols. These details were conspicuously absent from sanitized reports later released, which described only a geological anomaly of unusual preservation. The discrepancy highlighted a deliberate effort to alter the narrative. Within days, the entire survey team was reassigned to remote, unconnected posts, their field notes and logs confiscated. All digital records pertaining to the Category Alpha 0 site were purged from central databases, leaving only a placeholder entry for a minor environmental observation post. This systematic suppression effectively erased the discovery's true nature, creating a significant gap in the historical timeline. Modern ray analysis, however, uncovered encrypted, time-stamped files from a secondary backup server believed to be Dr. Tanaka's personal archive. These files contained raw sensor data and fragmented audio logs from the unveiling chamber. They corroborated initial reports of sustained sub-zero temperatures, the crystalline surfaces, and most disturbingly, a distinct, rhythmic pulse from the central artifact, a sound unlike any known natural phenomenon. The unanswered question now looms larger. What was the true nature of the artifact discovered within the unveiling chamber, preserved in its icy tomb? Why did its existence trigger such an unprecedented campaign of suppression? What potential knowledge or power did it represent that necessitated its complete erasure from public consciousness? And what did it reveal about the true architects of the remote peak's carved halls? The purpose revealed. The fragmented data recovered from Dr. Tanaka's encrypted archives, specifically the enhanced spectral analysis from the unveiling chamber, provided the first concrete evidence of the central artifact's function. It was not merely an object of reverence or a power source, but a sophisticated, multi-purpose device. The analysis indicated it was a complex environmental regulator, designed to maintain the chamber's extreme temperatures, and simultaneously, a data repository of immense capacity, interacting with the crystalline structures embedded in the walls. Immediate confusion arose regarding the implications of such technology within an ancient context. The device displayed characteristics of materials science and energy manipulation far beyond any known human civilization, ancient or modern. Its integration with the chamber's structure suggested a symbiotic relationship, where the environment itself was an extension of the artifact's capabilities, defying conventional understanding of construction and preservation. Official internal documents, later leaked by a whistleblower within the Oversight Committee, confirmed that initial classified assessments struggled to categorize the artifact. They labeled it Exo-Archaeological Unit 7, acknowledging its non-terrestrial, or at least non-human origin, a stark contrast to the public narrative of advanced human ingenuity. This internal designation solidified the understanding that authorities were fully aware of its extraordinary nature. Contradictions within the official response were glaring. While public statements continued to emphasize the cultural significance of the carved halls, the leaked documents detailed frantic efforts to reverse engineer the Exo-Archaeological Unit 7. There were records of failed attempts to access its data core and replicate its energy regulation system, all kept under absolute secrecy. The timeline of these attempts directly contradicted claims of the site being merely a historical preservation zone. Following the initial discovery, the entire unveiling chamber was hermetically sealed, and all access points were reinforced. Any personnel involved in the initial survey were subjected to strict non-disclosure agreements, and their personal data was flagged for continuous monitoring. This systematic suppression ensured that the true purpose of the artifact and its implications remained entirely hidden from the global scientific community and the public. Modern reanalysis of the enhanced spectral data, cross-referenced with newly available declassified Soviet-era satellite imagery, revealed a faint pulsating energy signature emanating from the remote peaks prior to the chamber's discovery. This signature, consistent with the artifact's projected output, suggests it had been active for an unknown duration, silently influencing its environment. The purpose, therefore, was not merely passive storage, but active maintenance and possibly transmission. The unanswered question that now demands attention is profound. What specific data was stored within the Exo-Archaeological Unit 7, and to whom was it transmitting? Was the environmental regulation solely for preservation, or did it serve a more active role in preparing the data for retrieval or release? The revelation of its purpose as a functional, transmitting device fundamentally alters the understanding of the entire site, suggesting a far grander and more active role than previously imagined. The silence broken. Years after the unveiling chamber was sealed and its secrets buried, the carefully maintained silence was abruptly shattered. On a frigid winter evening, remote seismic sensors, part of a covert monitoring network around the peaks, registered an unprecedented energy signature emanating directly from the chamber's coordinates. This was not a natural tremor, but a distinct, rhythmic pulse, far more powerful than anything previously detected from the artifact, suggesting a deliberate activation or a critical phase change. Immediate confusion gripped the monitoring teams. The pulse was unlike any known geological or atmospheric phenomenon, and its sustained, deliberate rhythm suggested an intelligent origin. Early analyses indicated a complex, multi-frequency broadcast, radiating outwards from the sealed chamber, momentarily overwhelming local communication arrays. The nature of this transmission, whether a message or a burst of energy, remained deeply perplexing, defying all established scientific models. Official directives from the Joint Task Force overseeing the site were instant and severe. The entire region was placed under a complete communications blackout, and military assets were deployed to enforce an expanded exclusion zone. All personnel were ordered to prioritize the interception and decryption of the anomalous signal, a dramatic shift from the previous policy of containment and passive observation. The sudden escalation revealed the profound alarm within the highest levels of authority. Contradictions within the classified reports became starkly apparent. Prior assessments consistently described the artifact as stable and inert, merely a passive data repository. The sudden active transmission directly refuted these claims, exposing a deliberate misrepresentation of the artifact's true capabilities. Records from a previous internal review, which had questioned the stability of the chamber's energy field, were hastily reclassified and flagged for immediate scrutiny. Despite the intensity of the event, a new layer of suppression was swiftly implemented. All public reports attributed the communication disruptions to severe atmospheric interference and minor seismic activity. The incident, internally codenamed Echo Wave, was officially erased from all but the most secure, compartmentalized databases. This concerted effort aimed to re-establish the narrative of an uneventful, remote research outpost. Modern reanalysis, however, years later, uncovered a partial fragmented recording of the Echo Wave event. This recovered data included what appeared to be a distinct, repeating sequence of non-linguistic, complex patterns embedded within the energy pulse. Dr. Tanaka's posthumous notes, discovered in a hidden compartment, theorized these patterns represented a form of highly compressed data, a deliberate attempt by the artifact to communicate or transmit information. The unanswered question that persists is critical. What was the specific content of the echo wave transmission, and who was its intended recipient? Was it a distress signal, a warning, or a profound message from the architects of the carved halls, finally breaking their millennia of silence? The implications of a successful, deliberate communication from such an ancient and advanced source remain an unsettling, profound mystery. Legacy in the stone. The comprehensive analysis of the echo wave transmission, undertaken by a highly specialized black-budget team, yielded a partial but profound discovery. The energy pulse was not a random burst, but a complex data packet designed to bypass Earth's atmospheric interference and project information beyond the planet. Deciphered fragments, though incomplete, contained intricate schematics of celestial navigation, advanced material synthesis, and biological markers alien to terrestrial life, revealing the artifact's true purpose as a beacon and an archive. Immediate confusion enveloped the decryption teams. The sheer scope of the information, particularly the biological data, challenged every known paradigm of life and evolution. It suggested that the creators were not only technologically advanced, but possessed an intimate understanding of universal biological principles, far exceeding human comprehension. The implications were staggering. A legacy not just for a local civilization, but for any sentient life capable of intercepting and understanding its message. Official response to this revelation was immediate and absolute. The deciphered data, codenamed Project Genesis, was categorized as the highest level of classified information, surpassing even nuclear launch codes in its secrecy. All personnel involved in the decryption process were permanently reassigned to isolated facilities, their communications monitored, ensuring no external leaks. The publicly maintained narrative of an ancient, albeit advanced, human culture was reinforced with renewed vigor. Contradictions within the official stance became glaringly obvious to those few privy to Project Genesis. While public statements continued to emphasize the cultural preservation of the site, internal documents revealed a desperate scramble to understand and potentially weaponize the alien technologies outlined in the schematics. There were records of theoretical physicists and exobiologists being brought in under extreme duress, their expertise exploited without full disclosure of the source material. The suppression of this monumental discovery was meticulously executed. All physical and digital evidence of Project Genesis was compartmentalized, encrypted, and distributed across multiple disconnected servers in secure locations worldwide. Any attempts by independent researchers to correlate the echo wave event with unusual astronomical observations were officially dismissed as misinterpretations or hoaxes, effectively burying the true nature of the legacy. Modern reanalysis, decades later, by a clandestine network of former intelligence analysts and whistleblowers, pieced together fragments of Project Genesis through leaked testimonies and obscure data trails. Their findings suggested that the artifact's primary function was to transmit a blueprint for advanced civilization, a final message from its creators, perhaps after their own demise or departure. It was a digital time capsule, designed for interstellar outreach, embedded within the very stone of Earth. The unanswered question that now permeates the understanding of the remote peak's carved halls is not Jiyashi shaped the rock, but why they chose Earth as the repository for such an extraordinary legacy. What was their connection to this planet, and what message beyond the technical data did they truly intend to impart to the cosmos? The silence of the peaks now resonates with the profound, unsettling echo of an ancient universal invitation. We have journeyed through the desolate beauty of the remote peaks, tracing the faint whispers of a monumental secret etched into the very stone of our world. What began as an archaeological enigma quickly transformed into a complex tapestry of discovery, confusion, and profound suppression. This is not merely a story of ancient civilizations or forgotten technologies. This is a stark reminder that some truths are deemed too dangerous, too destabilizing for the collective consciousness. It is a testament to the lengths to which institutions will go to control narratives, to bury revelations that challenge the bedrock of our understanding. The carved halls are not just a historical site, they are a monument to human fear and the deliberate choice to remain ignorant of what lies beyond our current grasp. The legacy in the stone endures, a silent broadcast echoing across the cosmos, patiently awaiting a recipient. The forces that shaped those peaks, that engineered the artifact, may be long gone, but their message, Their blueprint for existence remains. It is a constant, unsettling presence, a question mark hanging over our planet, challenging our place in the universe. The mystery of the remote peak's carved holes does not fully rest. It continues to resonate, a low, persistent hum beneath the surface of our reality. The mountains stand guard, holding their secrets close, waiting for a time when humanity is ready to truly listen. We invite you to share your thoughts. Where are you listening from? And what time is it as you contemplate this buried truth? Until our next chronicle, remember that some silences are louder than any sound.